Three, two, one.
Here we go!
Woohoo! Welcome to the Monday interview edition of the Dennis and Andy Show. I'm Andy.
And I'm Dennis. Welcome back. And we even got the heads over the right bodies today. Woohoo!
All right, I figured out how to do it. I'm a genius, a mad genius.
Well, welcome
Dennis,
back, Andy. We missed you on Friday. So, welcome back.
I was about to say, I'm glad to see you didn't burn down the store while I was gone. So,
Nope, virtual studio almost, but not the store.
didn't lose any subscribers, I hope.
No, gained a few.
Oh, I should leave more often.
I know, right?
Now, did you drink a beer on Friday as usual?
I did. I drank my jalapeno beer from the frothy beard. So I did. I got my jalapeno beer for them to see. So it went fine, but it's just not the same without you there to do a little ribbon.
Without my bald, blistering, boisterous, buoyancy mouth.
Exactly.
Nice.
And because you're back, we've got a fabulous guest star with us tonight.
We sure do. We're going to bring them on. We've got to me, just a comic book legend. I've known of his work forever, had the pleasure of meeting him and becoming friends with him years ago, but I knew his work before we became friends. I have an original piece of his art actually hanging up on my wall. So let's bring him in. David Brohawk Williams, welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going. Thanks for having me.
You got it.
So one of the things I always like to is because it's fun meeting people for the first time. I always kind of like to know on a new artist that I haven't met, what's kind of your origin story? Where are you coming from, and how did you get into comics?
The origin story. Okay, I'll jump all around on this. I got into comics early in my career. I was still in high school, so around 87, 88. I was I met Derek Robertson, the guy who co-created Transmetropolitan and The Boys and all that cool stuff that everybody is finally jocking. He's getting his due, which is good.
Yeah.
And he was working on an independent comic back in the day, and befriended him. And this was up in the Bay Area. He lived in San Mateo at the time, and there were some conventions out there, and that was some of the first, some of the first conventions I went to. The very first one I went to was out in LA, where they would have them every the first weekend of every month. And when I met Derek, when I finally went up to the Bay Area, my horizons got expanded, because the conventions that I would go to would almost exclusively have comic books. They would hardly have any guest artists and stuff. Sure. Only, maybe some obscure ones that I didn't care about. But when I went up to the Bay Area, it was almost like every comic book artist that you would care to know or love, was there at that moment. And some were actually even trying to get work at that time, or just started their careers, like the Rob Liefelds and the Eric Larsons and the Jim Lees and all that kind of stuff were right there in the beginning. And, I got to, because of me doing a little bit in comic books, me trying to find my own niche. I met, with some, amazing talents that I implemented into my own artwork, like Arthur Adams and Dave Stevens, and then later Steve Rude and Frank Sirocco, and oh my gosh, there's so many. But all of this stuff was just like a avalanche of just creativity, just all in one place and being thrown upon me, and I just want to absorb it all. I personally still think I'm like a human sponge, where I still look at other people's art and go, oh, I'm going to take this and try to implement this into my art. I never wanted to fixate on one thing, and I think I couldn't just fixate on one thing. My attention span is like, okay, I got to get to the next thing quick, or I get bored with my stuff. Yeah. But that said, I do admire the guys that do have a look, like Arthur Adams and John Byrne and Paul Smith and all that kind of stuff, where they've always had a look, and all they did was refine it and make it better.
Yeah, but I see with your work, I totally agree with that, because I'm the same way. I was always going, oh, this is cool, I want to try this technique, and this is cool, I want to try this type of rendering style, and oh, I like the way that guy does this lighting. But because I think we got into the business around the same time. I broke in '91.
Okay.
And so I was doing that more through the 90s, obviously, early on, and then early 2000s. But now I think, even looking back on it, I can see like, oh yeah, I still do that kind of just a little bit better.
Sure. Absolutely.
But I mean, I look at your work and I could definitely see, oh, that's Dave Williams. Well, like I said, it's too far away on the wall, but I have Nexus you did in marker from, I think it's 93 or 94. It's like 8.5 by 11. It's just a shot of him flying at you, but it still has that Dave Williams look, and even color wise,
If I ever come to visit you at your house, I'm going to burn that thing.
Oh no.
It's gone. So you better hide it.
I say that to people that have my stuff. Well, I don't sell my stuff anymore. So like the people that have my stuff have it from like the first 4 or 5 years I was in the business. Because after that, I stopped selling it.
Are you all digital, or are you drawing on paper still? Oh, okay.
It's on paper.
Okay.
I just keep it.
Yeah. I understand. I keep my art now too. So I just got rid of, some stuff, and I'm still getting rid of some old stuff because it's old stuff to me. I'm like, what am I holding it for? But this newer stuff that I'm doing is I'm keeping it as an investment for my family. I'm like, okay, this is your stuff, so I can't sell it.
Right.
And so I know there's some other, high profile artists out there that do the same thing. It's like they just keep it for their family. It has nothing to do with, oh, I got to flip it now or do anything of that.
I mean, honestly, that's why I'm keeping it. We have one kid, that's it. But, she'll be 18 this year. And, I look at it like this. If I last another 30 years, I'm 50, 51. So if I last another 30 years and just amass, it slows down as I get older, the amount that I do. But if I just amass more, and you figure I stopped selling the stuff back in like 96, 97. So the only stuff of mine that's out there is of pages is any inker I worked with that got their part and sold it. But other than that, I've got it. And once I kick it, my wife and kid could be like, let's just have a bonfire in his memory, or they could call up a dealer and be like, let's see what we can do. At that point, I don't care, but hopefully they'll do the latter and call up a dealer, and they'll be able to net something off of the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, dead man art is, more valuable anyway. So
That's right. I mean, Dennis comes over and he's just looking at the stuff I have on I have a few things on my wall frame. Most of the stuff is other artists' work, but some of the stuff is stuff I framed from like the late 90s when I was like, oh, this is the best I'll ever do. And I've just never taken it out of the frame. I know Dennis looks at it like, how healthy are you? And I'm like, what? Why would you ask that, Dennis?
I can't help it. It's all over. I'm just wondering. So, David, are you still old school, or have you made the jump to digital, or are you a combo?
I don't know nothing about Photoshop. I wish I did.
Okay.
There's an aspect of me that wishes I could just jump into the digital thing, or because there's a certain dependence on colorists and sometimes inkers and all that kind of stuff, and it's not to deprive them of doing some work, but for me being such a I don't want to say perfectionist, but how I see it in my head, I can't always depend on them to do it exactly. Like I'll give you an example. Like my longtime inker and one of my closest friends, like Gary Martin, he inks like Nexus and stuff like that, and I'd send him pencils and he'd send it back, and it's gorgeous and it's like precise and stuff. But my eye goes, oh, let me go in there and fix, even his perfection. So there's an aspect of me where there's a certain, because I'm going to be doing mainly my own art, I'm not going to be doing it for DC, Marvel, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I just want to have it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just want to have it and see it to the final thing my way. I almost even want to learn just so I could do my own lettering. I don't want to get another letterer in there either. Sure. Just say, yeah, that's 100% me, and it's successful or it's a failure and it's all on me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because before I used to only blame Gary.
Yeah.
I said, oh, you don't like it? Oh, it was the inker.
Well, lettering's not too bad. I taught myself how to letter in Illustrator. I'm still not I still actually have somebody that I went to the Kubert school with do the lettering for me, because I look at it and I go, yeah, I could do lettering, but he's been doing it for 30 years and he crushes it.
Yeah.
So he can do it. I do get a little more finicky when it comes to coloring, but I don't color my stuff because I'm just too damn slow. Like, when I hear a colorist go, oh, even, and now I know colorists use flatters, but still, I'll talk to like really good colorists that'll use a flatter and be like, oh, I still do 3 to 4 pages a day. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because even with like a single figure, no background, would take me 2 to 3 times as long as it takes one of my colorist friends. You know? And it's just, and I know why. I don't do it all the time.
Sure.
And
I mean, it all of that stuff and pushing buttons and doing all this kind of stuff and shifting is nothing like, holding paper and, really getting in there and, to me, or I could be misinformed, or my trepidation to actually get to it, because I got a computer right over here, a secondary one where I can do that stuff. I just haven't done it,
Yeah. No, I mean, Dennis brought up the traditional or digital, and I'm a hybrid. So I draw everything on the computer in Sketchbook Pro, but then when I ink it, I convert it to blue and print it out full size Bristol and ink everything traditionally. Because like you, I like the paper. I like having the original art. And there's just things that I can't replicate inking wise on the computer that I do by hand.
Sure. I mean, and again, it goes back to, I think me just doing it on paper is an investment towards my family,
Right.
And that's the main reason,
Oh, no,
I came across an artist who I came across this panel, and it was one of my favorite of all time. I'm an X-Men fan. And I was like, wow, he's on top of a Smokey and the Bandit Firebird. It's Jean Grey. It's like my perfect one. So Andy got me in touch with them and they said, hey, I'm just curious, are you digital? Are you that? Because I would be interested in that. It is 43 years of collecting, and that is my favorite panel of all time. Nope, it's digital. He's Italian, and he goes, I can print you one and put a stamp on it for $750. And I went,
No.
Nope. Now, if it was original and stuff, I was like, no, great panel, but yeah, not for print. I'm kind of there with you. I like the originals. So you keep all of yours?
For the most part, I do. But like I said, this old stuff, I've gotten rid of, a lot of it. But oh my goodness, yeah, those are gone. Those are gone.
Yeah. I usually pull up if any of our guests have done anything in the X-Men, the mutant universe, I have them. So it's always kind of fun because when Andy said, oh, I've got David coming on there, I'm like, David, what's he done that I would have for sure? And then I was like, Wolverine, and then First Class. And I was like, oh, I've got the whole run of that one. So I always bring that up there to see if you guys have fond memories of that or not.
I actually did. That was probably some of the funner times I had with Marvel, because they were just saying, hey, just go to town. And they didn't have like a huge directive, and, and I got to kind of get in my John Byrne, Michael Golden, Paul Smith mode on those, so I was just so those were fun,
Awesome.
And, it was fun. That's all I can say.
What was your first professional comic book work?
It was, again, for professional, where I actually got paid was on Derek Robertson's little independent book called Space Beaver. It's not what you think it is.
No, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. It was a very cool book at the time. I actually think he should do that book again, and just bring it back, and they'll probably make it into an animated show. But it was very much in the same spirit of like Ninja Turtles, talking animals, and all that kind of thing. And then not too long after that, I got some work at DC. And
did you do some Jaguar covers?
I did the books.
You did the books. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Is that what you're talking about, or is that after?
Well, before that, I got some Who's Who pinups to do from Michael Urey, which was kind of weird the way all that came out. So they were both at this show up in the Bay Area, and Dave Stevens was the one who took my portfolio over to them because I wasn't there to actually show my work. I was just, because I was dejected 2 other shows before, and I was just like, I give up, that kind of thing. Or I just didn't I wasn't giving up. I just wasn't going to pursue DC and Marvel at that time because they kept on telling me I wasn't good enough. I was too cartoony, and Dave Stevens, hit me to some other artists that I could implement into my art, like, Steve Rude, Alex Toth, Andrew Loomis, and all that kind of stuff. And so my art immediately changed. Like, it went from night and day because I was like an Arthur Adams clone or something like that, but a really bad one. And so since I implemented actual good figure work, with environments and all this kind of stuff, and it just like clicked overnight, So I had my portfolio with some of this stuff, but I wasn't intending to show anyone at Marvel or anybody else really. I was there with Derek and some other friends, and we were just kicking it, and he said, hey, show me what you got now, and he took my portfolio but before he took my portfolio, he goes, hey, go show the guys over at Marvel. And I went over there kind of like, here we go again, and I plopped down the portfolio in front of Tom DeFalco. You don't got it, kid. It's not quite good enough, this is wrong, this ain't blah, 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 blah. And I took it back and I was like, went back to Dave Stevens. I was like, see, I said, you just want to embarrass me and stuff like that. A funny thing is that Dave Stevens used to call me Michael Jackson. Like every time.
No way. Every
time he saw me, because he said I look like a young Michael Jackson, and I was just like, all right. So I took. He opened the portfolio and looked through it. He's like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and he took it over to DC. He said, "Come with me," and he took me and took it over to the DC table. And he opened up the portfolio in front of Michael Urie. And again, I think Brian Augustine was there. I'm pretty sure. And he goes, Dave Stevens goes, if you don't give this kid some work, I'll never work for you.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. And so that immediately made Michael Urie goes, oh, no, look at it in a different way. And he goes, hey, would you like to do some pinups for Who's Who? We're just starting on the Who's Who. And I was like, what? I'm like, and then, back then, I think I was 17, 18, just turning. And there's other young people. So the chatter started going from there. Oh, man, this kid over there, he just got some work for DC. Man, he's going to be the next DC artist and blah, blah, blah. It came back around. And so it came back around. So Tom DeFalco heard it, right? And he came over to me at my table. He said, hey, let me look at this portfolio again. He goes, and then he goes, yeah, maybe we could get you, maybe we could get you a backup story. And I'm like, no, I'm working for DC now. So I just said, forget it. I had so much attitude, like I was the man. But truth be told, as great as that was, and I like that, that story. And if I could go back in time, I would reject myself and say, work on a creator-owned thing for yourself. Right. You know what I mean? And not try to get into Marvel, so young, because those are the people they take advantage of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And abuse and, and can discard and all this kind of stuff. And they don't prep you, for, someone being that young. This is how you should invest your money. This is how you should do this. This is the book you should be on as a newcomer. And don't try to thrust someone that young with such a heavy workload to trying to do monthly work and all this kind of stuff. You got to gradually get them up into those things. It was a learning experience. I tell all younger artists, hey, work on your own creator-owned thing. Like Michael Allred, who created Madman. Yeah. I said, if you do that and you work your thing so hard and you just work it, if you build it, they will come. And the fact is that DC and Marvel came to them instead of the opposite way. You know what I mean? And when when they went to him, they said, hey, would you like to do our character? He said, no, I do my character with your characters. So now he's making a combo and he's validating his characters on the same level as theirs. Yeah. And so now he just boosted up his character. You know what I mean? And that's the smart way to do any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I followed Mike's career from the very first Madman stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what Madman's name was before it was Madman?
I feel like I did, but I don't remember. Because what was it?
It was the Spook.
No, I did not hear that.
Yeah.
Somebody probably gave him good advice to change that.
No, I didn't. I liked the idea. I said, oh, that's cool. But Dennis Cowan is the one that told him, no, you can't do it, because he had a comic book that he was going to do called The Spook.
Oh, really?
I didn't look at it as, I knew what the racial connotation was, but there was no racial connotation with Mike at all, or that character, if you look at it in context. But you definitely couldn't do that stuff now, where people would be like, no. How dare you have a character named The Spook?
Oh no, you couldn't do that now. But no, I've got the early Madman stuff. I always loved that stuff. I loved his art style. That was right when I was in the Kubert School. He started it, because I know in the Kubert School I did some drawings of the character and stuff. And another friend of mine in the Kubert School, Mike Cavallero, really liked it as well. I also think the same kind of like with Paul Chadwick and Concrete, because he was doing that first, and I've got the original first 2 issues of that stuff, and I loved it. And then, not that he ever did a team up with Concrete and something at Marvel or DC, but he did end up doing stuff for DC, and I think it's the same thing. He did Concrete for so long that he just built up his rep, and they came to him.
Yeah.
And that is, that's good advice. So, it's one of those things that, hey, if you could go tell yourself something, the older you go tell your 20 something, some advice, that's good advice. So
yeah. And it's not as if, these newer artists are able to like kick in the DC and Marvel doors now in this current situation. So they better work on their own thing, Well,
and I think a lot more are. I mean, because you see a lot of stuff out there that's nice looking stuff from people, obviously you've never heard of, and it's, they might have been toiling around for a few years. And finally they're getting something out there through crowdfunding or whatever. And you're just looking at it like, that's some really nice looking stuff. Absolutely.
I mean, I was going to say everybody has the opportunity to be their own Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So
I was going to say, with the climate, especially with what happened, the big announcement with, Capital, being dropped by, Diamond, being dropped by Marvel. They were dropped by DC. Now, suddenly the entire industry is being turned upside down. So they're going to have to go through Penguin, which, it's all part of Random House. And that's all they're designed for trade paperbacks and books. They're not designed for floppies and, individual issues. So this changes everything. And then it looks like DC's going to start doing $5.99 comics is going to become their standard part. They were announcing, and if that winds up being the case, and they're already getting rid of their high-paid artists, all of this crowdfunding, because, some of the guys that I know are like, man, 20, 25 books for a comic book and stuff like that, where I can still go get my $2.99 or $3. That's all changed. It's literally changed in the last week. Suddenly, I've got a feeling that these crowdfunding things, and you guys that create all of your own books, you're going to be able to make a much bigger impact, because now we all have the same amount of money that we can spend as fans. But do I walk down to my comic shop and give them $6 and they're not going to be able to offer any discounts? Or can I get a much better quality product and just go through either Kickstarter or Indiegogo?
It's looking like the crowdfunding situation is going to be the dominant thing here pretty soon, because the Marvels and the DCs think they are important and are needed, right. And the fact of the matter is that there's some bean counter upstairs above them that are going, we actually don't need you, because the thing that's needed, because the larger fan group isn't us anymore, it's the normies who go to the movies. Those are the bigger Spider-Man fans now. Those are the bigger Avengers fans now, because we can't puff our chests up and say, hey, I know all these comic books. That doesn't mean anything, because this thing gets seen by far more people and makes way more money. So what are we producing this paper stuff for?
Well, that's
intellectual property. I mean, that's just it. If that disappears, Hollywood can't write any of this crap. All they can do is take good works that you guys put out as creators, and then they adapt it. That's basically all they do now, and they're going to run out.
Well, I don't think they're going to run out of Spider-Man. They're going to always have that, because they'll keep recycling it through Random House, through trade paperbacks, and keeping their rights and all that kind of stuff. But what Hollywood is going to look towards is what we have to get something absolutely new that goes left of Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Or, in some other trajectory or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're going to be looking to these people who are crowdfunding, who are coming up with original content, and that's the thing. And they're going to be saying, okay, let's get this while it's a seedling. You know what I mean? There's people who are sold stuff to these streaming services and their books aren't even finished.
Oh, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, and this isn't the case for Mark Millar, but, Netflix basically got his library.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, you're right. There's other things where it's like, here's just a glimpse of what the book's going to be. And it's like, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, look at Berserker. I mean, it had Keanu Reeves behind it, which is why, but when we got the first issue, it was fabulous. Matter of fact, in one of our first podcasts, when we reviewed it, we're like, this is set up perfectly to be TV, Netflix, movie, something. It's designed perfectly for it. And it wasn't very long. The following week, Netflix said, yep, we're picking it up. It took that quick. I watched the first couple, and we're going to talk about it probably on Wednesday, but Kirkman's Invincible. We watched the first couple of the cartoon, and wow, again, another one that's not Marvel or DC. They're doing a great job with it. So, yeah, it isn't going to have to be Marvel or DC. I think all of the independent creators have a great chance now putting something original out there and having it picked up by one of the many visual platforms that are out there.
Absolutely. And Kirkman is like another perfect example of, he took all of the existing superhero tropes that we know of from Marvel and DC and stuff, and he's saying, I'm going to do what you would never do with your characters.
Yeah.
And it made it original.
My daughter's never read, she's never read Invincible. And I said, look, we should watch this, because she's into all this stuff. So she's like, okay, what's it about? And I said, just watch it. So we watched it. And the first, Dave, have you seen it or no?
I saw the first 3 episodes, yes.
Okay, so you're at where I am. So she's watching the first episode, and she goes, oh, that's Batman. Oh, that's the Flash. Oh, that's this. And I'm like, yeah, they're the Global Guardians, of course. Yeah. But I told her, I said, just keep watching. She goes, well, just tell me. I said, I'm not going to spoil anything. Just keep watching. And the end of that first episode, she was like, whoa. Yeah, and she kept bugging me. She's like, well, when are they going to finally tell us that Omni-Man is mind controlled and who's mind controlling him? And I said, I can't tell you, but that ain't it.
Yeah. Exactly. And Kirkman understood, the things that we like as comic book superhero nerds, but he also understands soap opera. And soap opera is like, most guys go, oh, I won't watch a soap opera. But I got sucked in. Exactly. And I got sucked into watching General Hospital and One Life to Live and all that kind of stuff because of one thing that my wife was watching one time, where this woman slapped another woman. I said, damn, why'd she slap that woman? And the moment I asked that question is the moment I got hooked. Because I had to see all the other reasons and why it's a domino effect. So the show was like, I got you, bitch, that kind of thing. So, so he understands that soap opera aspect he'll drag you along slowly, but he'll do something so violent that'll make you go, damn, why'd that happen? You know, because my wife was not watching, but she was in the room while it was playing, while I was watching, and then she heard something that was dramatic, and she goes, why did that happen? And then I'm like, I got to tell you all this back thing. I'm already into the 3rd episode, so I got to tell you all this other stuff. Why don't you just watch it? You know, yeah. But that's what, you know, good writing does. A lot of things that, you know, DC and Marvel and Image and all these types of, they've kind of lost that, you know. I can't say all of it, but, you know, a good portion of it. But some of these guys who are crowdfunding, they're putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and they're just not crapping stuff out. There's crap in there, but there's a lot of, you know, oh, Marvel wouldn't let me do this, Image wouldn't let me do this, I got to do it on my own, and I'm going to prove them wrong, you know, and that's what all that is about.
Plus, it allows for a greater expanse because, so, you know, Andy gave me one of the crowdfunding ones that I had never heard of, and it was the Minx Cyberpunk, and I did a review on it on Friday, and it's like, because I love cyberpunk stuff, I like fantasy, I like sci-fi, and you know, there's so much I'm finding really good stuff out in the independent side of things that, you know, Marvel or DC, you know, like they just put out Aliens, which, you know, I'm giving it a shot, but I think independents would do better with it, but Marvel's putting it out. But, you know, independents, they can do so many of these different genres better than what the big 2 can, or big 3 for that matter.
Absolutely. I think so, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, there's a certain risk that they don't want to take. That's why they go with the Marvels, and, you know, because they know they're, you know, but the independent people, they feel unencumbered. They're like, oh, we get to do this. And they play with the toys with a vigor, and, you know, let's see how far we could bend this thing. Or, you know what I mean? They have a real reverence for it. And, you know, I don't know.
They do. They play it safe now. Like, they know, like, a guy like me, I get everything X-Men. I have been collecting X-Men for 43 years. And if they put it out X-Men, I'm going to buy it. You know, I bought 100% all these years. And then Children of the Atom came out, and I finally broke down and just read it.
Oh, yeah. We haven't talked about it.
We have not talked about it. And, oh, my. I think this is going to be going to have to be one of our Wednesday conversations. I almost can't buy it. It is so bad. I almost can't buy it. And for me to not buy an X book, that has never happened. I bought everything. Bought Fallen Angels. I bought Exterminators. I bought even the crappy little 4-issue shots, all the long ones, even the terrible ones. Man, this is so bad now, and it's gone so far left and this is even after all the rewrites, because it was held back for a year because of rewrites.
Oh,
and
really?
Yes, and that's why it was supposed to have been released a year ago. And then, you know, when the New Warriors with Safe Space and Snowflake were announced, and then they announced this right afterwards, I'm like, oh my God, it can't be this bad. Dude, this after the rewrites, I read it, and I can't take it. I'm almost this close to not doing an X-Men book. And therefore, once that domino tips,
oh yeah,
am I going to start giving up other X books? So I'm one of the diehards.
Oh, Dave, when he says diehards, he has every issue of X-Men from 1963, number 1, to current day.
Damn.
So it's not just, and like you said, all the miniseries, all the X Factors, all the X Force, all the, everything. Everything.
Wow. Yeah. Did you love the movies too, or just buy them?
Yeah. Okay. So the original movies. So again, when they first came out, think about it. This is right before Spider-Man. Yeah, there weren't any superhero teams out. There were no Avengers. For what it was really good. Second one was really good. And then when X3 came out and Brett Ratner did it, I mean, he just shit all over that bed. And then they just tried to remake it again with the same writer, and he shit on it twice. Literally, here's another scoop of diarrhea, and it was awful. So the movies were hit and miss. Same thing with Wolverines. They were hit and miss, and then Logan comes out, and it's a masterpiece. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. So, it's just like with anything. There's good and there's bad, but as a fan, you absorb it all and you take it all in.
Sure. Wow. You are a true X fan.
I am. I know. Love Wolverine. My favorite, if you can't tell, it's Jean Grey. It's Dark Phoenix.
Okay.
Probably hard to see.
No, I can see it.
The quarter scale exclusive sideshow. And then I always have a lot of my artist friends. So that one above is actually a painting. John Hairston did it. He's a graffiti artist. And I had told him, I says, I'm getting this statue. Paint me whatever you want. Just use your imagination. You know that I'm a traditionalist and I love it. He did an absolutely fabulous job with it. So, I mean, I have been collecting that since I was a little kid. And then I got, when I finally, because my wife's like, you ain't never getting an X-Men #1. She goes, you can't throw a car in. And I'm like, I know, it's just too expensive. Well, finally, I had gotten 5 and then 4 and then 3 and then 2. So I was just down to 1. So, and then all the dealers come up because I do all the conventions, they're always holding it up. I got an X-Men #1. No, I don't have 10 grand. No, I don't have 12 grand. Finally, my wife comes up one day and she goes, just do it. And I went, what? She goes, go spend what you need to, just be realistic and do it. So I shocked her and I went out and bought at that time, a 9.0 slabbed one.
Wow.
And she came home and she was so mad. She goes, I told you to buy a comic book, not an automobile. And I said, I know. But then I took it immediately down to Florida and Orlando, and I got a private signing with Stan Lee because that's who I wanted the book on. So I knew it wasn't going to come back a 9.0 because they have to crack it. I was shaking at the booth. Yeah. They said, you crack open your own book. And I'm sitting there shaking. I'm like, I can't do it. I just spent all this money on the book. And the guy next to me goes, I'll crack it for you. And he goes, you cracked my Hulk 181 that I'm doing it for. And we did. We cracked each other's books. Oh, wow. and then it came, you know what? And it was fantastic. And then when the guys were doing it, they handstand the books and they explain it. And they walked up and they're like, so Stan, you got to know what this X-Men #1 is. And he gave him my story and everything like that. And he's like, what? I mean, he just got this book now? And he goes, give me a new Sharpie. This is going to be Excelsior. He goes, this is going to be my best signature of the convention. They gave him a brand new Sharpie, and it is. I had 5 books signed. The other 4 are in silver, and it's thick markers, and it's like, yeah, it's Stan. This one, he did it with a brand new marker. Slap, came back in 8.5. That sucker's getting buried with me in the grave.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome.
Yeah. That is just crazy.
Yeah.
That's it. I completed it after all these years of collecting and slowly working my way backwards. That's just what I do. And that's why for me to say that I would stop collecting an X book, I mean, literally you're piercing my heart with an arrow.
Woo. Hey, do you know Kevin Grievous, right?
Yeah.
He just wrote me and he just wanted to let me know because he's listening. He says he has a character named the Spook too.
Is it really?
Yes.
Well, so he's writing Bass Reeves, right?
Yes, he is.
So how did Bass Reeves come about? Because I know it's with Mitch and everything, his company, but
yeah,
like how did that whole thing come together?
It was kind of weird because Kevin and I were talking about Bass Reeves separately because he wanted to do a Bass Reeves and I wanted to do one, and his was vastly different from mine. And I was almost even thinking of doing one where it was like a space version of, like it's a fantasy version of Bass Reeves, right? Like, and but just to tell a story in some kind of weird way. And then I said, oh no, it would be cool to do like a POV version of Bass Reeves. So you barely even see him. You just know all of his actions that he's doing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and Kevin had his version. I can't remember what it was, but it was pretty cool. But we kept on talking. Yeah. I'll do yours if you write mine, or we were trying to figure out something. And then that gets pushed away, and I'm doing some Marvel work, and he's doing some animation writing, or something happens, right, to where we're not doing it. And then all of a sudden, Mitch calls me out of the blue and asks if I, wanted to do something for his company. And I was just like, sure, man, what do you pay?
Of course.
That's the next question.
Of course.
And so if the coin ain't right, then I ain't doing a damn thing. So
right. Yeah, I mean, that's the way it works.
But the coin was right. And he had all these different ideas, and the moment he said, because I was saying no to everything, like it was Nora Saga and the other books that he had, and I was just nope. As soon as he said Bass Reeves, because I said that's the one, I'll do that, because and then I told him that I've been thinking about doing a Bass Reeves myself, and he said, well, why don't you do it for me instead? And I was just like, all right. And if I was going to do it for myself, I was virtually doing it for no pay, and I'd be doing it for crowdfunding, hoping, it gets funded,
Right.
But Mitch already was like rubbing those hundreds underneath my nose, and I was just like, all right, and so, no, I mean, I've known Mitch and Elizabeth for a little bit, and they're a sweet couple, and I was just like, oh, these are some cool people. They seem like they would, treat me right and stuff. And the fact that they wanted to do Bass Reeves, I was like, oh, okay. You guys are cool, real cool, And I think they, at first, were going to have another writer in mind. And I was like, no. I have some ideas, and I want Kevin Greaves.
Sure.
And they were just like, oh, that'd be great. So it worked out. So I called Kevin and said, hey, we got to do this. Here's the opportunity. We're talking all this stuff. This is it right now. These people want to pay. And he said, I can't even do Kevin's voice. I was going to attempt it, but but he was all right, black man, let's do this. So and so it was on and popping from there, and here we are today.
It's cool, man. I tell you, one of the things I liked is just the bio about him in the back of the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like historical stuff like that. So just reading up on this guy, I'm like, man, this dude was just awesome. And then from the art side of it, because you made a decision to go what I see as a different style than I think you're known for.
Absolutely.
And it looks so cool. So
thank you.
I mean, that's like, for me to switch gears like that, once I get rolling, it's easy, but at first it's work. And did you find that when you mentally shifted those gears to go, I'm going to try this type of style and do a bunch of like preparatory stuff first that like basically people haven't seen, so you can nail it down?
Yeah, I mean, and it'll be stuff that people will probably never see. Because
Right.
when I'm going through that, it's like I probably got rid of like half of a rainforest, just throwing stuff away, trying to figure it out, because it's you already have Mitch, who draws the way he does, and then you have Butch Geis, and then you have Kelsey, who's amazing too. They're already kind of going in a certain direction, and I said I have to go the opposite. It's almost like where Jackie Chan was talking about, competing with Bruce Lee, or the memory of Bruce Lee when he was coming up. And, he was saying, he said, you can't compete with that person. You have to do something so opposite. So when Bruce Lee would kick high, he would kick low. And when Bruce Lee would hit somebody, he would put on a cool face. But when Jackie would hit somebody, he would hit him and he'd go, and be funny about it. So I was saying, what have we seen with Westerns? Every time we see it, it's always very, very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's always a very muted color palette. It's very sepia tone, like as if people lived in sepia tone land, which wasn't the case, because they were actually very colorful, because they liked wearing bright clothes, because to them it was almost like a status thing, where, because they would get all of this material from the Orient, and they would be wearing flashy bright blue and red and yellows and greens and purples, all the time. And I said, well, if that's the case, I want to have my characters like that, but I want the environment to feel like there's life, there's color, there's, and almost in a weird way, in my mind, since it's like 1870, I wanted it to feel almost like our 1970s. So it has kind of a funky vibe to it. So if you look at some of the figures, it's kind of funky, Bass Reeves has, the hat and the flared out, almost bell bottom type things.
Yep.
And he's almost like Shaft on, in the Old West, and
I never thought of that, but I never really thought of that, but because I'm looking at some stuff on my screen, so I've got the actual comic back there. But man, that's a great point. That's really a great point about that Shaft type of look, because the way you did his cowboy hat with the huge brim and everything.
Yeah.
Well, he has this from doing design stuff. You work character design stuff off a silhouette. He's got a really good silhouette.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you really nailed, I think you really nailed his face too. And, he had, in real life, looking at his photos of him, he definitely had a really distinct mustache, which is good. Because the last thing you'd want is to look at this guy or look at somebody that you're going to do a book on and be like, wow, that guy's pretty generic. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But this dude, right out of the gate, it's that mustache. And you're like, holy crap, I've already got something to play with. Because you don't see mustaches like that today.
Exactly. And the other aspects I wanted to throw in there, because I'm still a lover of superheroes. I love superheroes. I love action adventurers and stuff like that. And I wanted to add a little bit of that visually to Bass, with a little bit of the Shadow and a little bit of Batman, has those aspects on there. Like even that first cover, I was trying to evoke, like the Bruce Timm Batman, where he's standing on the building and the lightning strikes behind him and stuff. So I'm trying to evoke that, Batman animated type feel. Yeah. But I'm also doing things visually that makes you think, with that brim of his hat, it's always casting a shadow across his eyes, so it looks like a mask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm getting to play around with him being, a whole other person when he puts on that outfit. You know what I
Right.
mean? He becomes the lawman, like the one that everybody fears, you know.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I was trying to develop this style, I started looking, you know, because I was always a huge Jamie Hewlett fan, the guy who did Gorillas and Tank Girl and all that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh totally.
So I wanted to move away from the formulaic things that I would do if I was doing a Marvel or DC book, you know, with figure work. And then I implemented some of the more uh, pushed figure work and stuff like that and proportions. And I was looking also a lot at Robert Valley. Robert Valley was a animator designer. He worked on Tron Uprising, which is a
Yeah.
really great animated show for Disney and stuff. Probably my favorite one in the past like 20 years. Yeah.
Sure.
If you want to have like, you know, like the closest thing to Kirby being animated, look at, you know, Tron Uprising.
Sure.
And so I implemented some of his, you know, understanding of figure work and tried, you know, still trying to keep my own personal integrity with it.
Right.
And even some of the stuff that you're showing right now, like with the hard nose and stuff like that. I wanted him to look like he was etched, you know, carved out of wood. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? With the
Oh yeah.
big square flat nose and jaw and all this kind of stuff, and the chin that could, you know, break granite, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, just look at him in real life. I mean, he's so stoic in that picture, you know, and it's hard to believe that. I mean, he lived from 1838 to 1910, so this is obviously in the 1800s when this picture was taken, and you know, he just looks like a badass.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's probably 2 or 3 other pictures of him out there, but it's almost, you know, he's posing the exact same way.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
so
his story is really cool, you know, for what he accomplished and stuff.
Yeah, there's some people in that have debates about whether he was the inspiration for the Lone Ranger or not. And
oh yeah,
I almost think it's almost impossible not to see the influence that Bass had on that character. The fact that, you know, he had an Indian sidekick, Bass rode a white horse, you know, he used to give silver trinkets out to kids. You know, he used to disguise himself and go and capture bandits and all this kind of stuff. Sounds like the Lone Ranger to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So it's 6 issues. I know that. What is 3 out now?
Yes.
It is. Okay, cool.
Because Bass was one of the comics that went through Walmart, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was curious, how did that come about? How you guys wound up getting hooked up with Walmart? I remember Andy and I taking a road trip trying to find a Walmart that had them.
Oh yeah, we went to. I really wanted to find one that had the whole cardboard rack that Mitch showed.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to find one not here in our town, but I think we were in South Carolina and I found it. But I was excited. You know, I went out and Dennis said, we went out and I got the #1 outings of everything, and you know, the stuff's cool. So
thank you. As far as that whole deal with Walmart, that's whole Mitch and Elizabeth stuff, I'm just an artist that has my head down and draws. So I don't know how they got that deal, and I'm
well, the only thing he crowdfunded, the only thing that he crowdfunded, that if I remember right, was his Red Rooster, right? He didn't crowdfund any of this other stuff, did he?
I think he did.
But did he? Okay, I don't know.
But it was after Red Rooster. It was a little small thing just to say, hey, you know, here's this uh, bonus something, I believe. And how they got that Walmart thing, it's awesome, a miracle. I wouldn't know how to go about getting it.
I had no, dude, I would have no
cool.
idea.
Yeah,
about getting it. I hear they're so picky.
Yeah.
Indy said his was in the electronics department. That's actually where we found it too. It was back by the electronics where the magazines were, and then it was stuck in over there. So I was like, we found it, but yeah, that's where ours was too. And I think it was when we were at a convention in was it Charleston?
It might have been.
Yeah, it might have been Charleston.
Yeah, they weren't too organized this first tranche out, and hopefully they'll, just keep them near the book section or something like that. So we'll see how it goes. But I know he has some new displays, and I think he has a new system to where they won't be putting stickers on the books this go around.
Oh yeah, I pulled those right off.
Yeah,
mine didn't come off.
Oh, see, they're fixing that and stuff. And also, if you got them directly through the online, I don't think there was a sticker on them. So
that's good.
But that was an unfortunate, unforced error on Walmart's part.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They don't know the collectors.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So,
they didn't know any better.
Exactly. So what else you've been working on, or is it just Bass Reeves?
Commissions and mentally trying to develop this other creator-owned project that I'm going to be doing, and I'm trying to fine tune it. I don't want to talk too much about it right now, but when it's all ready, I'll come back if you guys will have me.
Oh, you know it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know it.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up, but we really appreciate your time, and
thanks for having me.
The people watching and stuff. Like I said, one of the things that sticks out in my mind that you did, and I hate it when people do this to me because it's going to be something that's back in the day as well, but I still enjoy it, was those, I think it was a 3-issue Supreme miniseries.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You also did a backup for Larson with Mighty Man too, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, Mighty Man. Oh, that I didn't know. That's awesome.
Yeah. That was fun. I was supposed to do a Savage Dragon, but I backed out of that one. First, Adam Hughes was doing it. Then it came to me, and then it went to, I think, Rick Mays or someone like that. And
yeah, I do remember reading about. I remember that back in the day. I think he talked about it in like a letters column. I know the miniseries you're talking about. Yeah, Rick Mays did it. But I think he might have explained it. Either that or he just told me. I can't remember. Yeah. It's been forever. Because I did, Eric was the one that got me in at Image with doing Vanguard for him, and then Deadly Duo, and then Mars Attacks the Image Universe, which had everybody. Mm-hmm. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, man. All right, everybody. Well, we will be back on Wednesday. We'll have to talk about Children of the Atom because now I'm very curious because I haven't talked to Dennis since he read it. I didn't buy it.
It'll be unfiltered, so don't bring your children.
All right. Now I'm really looking forward to it. Well, we're going to be talking about Invincible as well, and that's not exactly for under 18 either. When my daughter saw, because she didn't know, like I knew Invincible going into it. Oh, that's nice. David, your art looks fantastic. Nice body of work. It's true.
Thank you, kind sir. Thank you.
Thank you, North Free, for joining us again. No, I knew what to expect from Invincible, and Courtney kind of did because I've got the 2 Invincible action figures. You know what I'm talking about, Dave? Have you seen these?
No, I haven't.
All right, so these came out a few years ago, and there's 2 versions of Invincible. I don't know where we'll call it clean one is because this is one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
After the fight.
Oh my
Because if you
goodness.
know, if you read Invincible,
Yeah.
towards the end, every fight he got into, he was just drenched in blood.
Yeah.
And then there's the same version, same pose, except he's totally clean.
Okay.
So, so I knew what we were getting into with Invincible, but I knew Courtney didn't. So when Omni-Man goes to the Guardian's place, and he takes the Flash guy like this. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I know it's coming.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when it
did
happened,
not.
my daughter was like, what the hell did I just, what is this? And I'm like, it's awesome.
I think
I remember picking up the first issue of it when it came out, and I read it, and I was like, that's cute. I like it. Da 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 da. But it was nothing that grabbed me where it said you need to put this on your pull list. So I never did. Man, had I known what it was about after I saw the end of the first episode, now I want to go back and read the whole thing. I'm kicking myself because that was so not what I was expecting. So anyway, yeah, I've got some more reading to do, it looks like.
yeah, the animation is not as good as the comic though. So
yeah,
Ryan Otley really put his foot in it. It was really good. So check out the comic.
Oh my God, Ryan's just I liked it. I liked, what Corey Walker was doing, because I mean he did the first 5 issues or so, 4 or 5 issues.
Yeah.
And I was sad to see him go, but then this new Ryan kid steps in. And it's like, oh, this is nice stuff. He's trying to continue the style, but eventually he just grew right into his own. I mean, for over 100 issues, if I was, to tip my hat to 2 guys, it would be Eric Larson and Ryan, because of their enormous runs. Bagley as well for Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong, but with Larson, especially with it being his own deal, and basically Invincible is Ryan's, and that's honestly one of the things that lit the fire under me to go, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. I want to get First Man out there again. First Man #1 came out back in 1997. It said to be continued. And, I try not to beat myself up over it, but it's been 24 years. And finally, with the Indiegogo, I finished it. So now I can move on to the second story of it. And that's just what I want to do. If I only get 4 of them out, at least I can say I'm finally doing it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
well, I'm rooting you on. Do it.
I appreciate it, Dave. So everybody join us on Wednesday, and we will see you guys then. Until then, bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everyone.